All right, man, welcome back. We're in week 2 of responsibility. Last week we talked about the cycle of victimhood. I'll give you a quick refresher. Once we say that it's not our fault or that we couldn't have done anything better, we go into this cycle, and that is that we feel like we have a lack of control over the outcomes, which affects our motivation, which gets us bad results, which gets us stuck inside of this victimhood mentality. So we are going to jump into the topic talking about determinism. Okay, I'm going to read you a definition here, but so we can thoroughly understand what this is and the mindset that we're trying to combat and destroy inside of our lives. So determinism. The doctrine that all events, including human action, are uniquely determined by cause external to the will. Some philosophers have taken determinism to imply that the individual human beings have no free will and cannot be held morally responsible for their actions. And so here is the mindset that we're really trying to combat. And it is a mindset that has crept into faith, and it is definitely a mindset that has been adopted by the world systems. And that is, everything is determined. Human will is a delusion. We don't really have a choice. And if we don't really have a choice, then we're not really responsible for the actions that we take. So that is victimhood at its finest. And it doesn't surprise me that the world systems would have a logic and a mindset that it's wrapped around victimhood. It doesn't surprise me at all. But what does surprise me is that it's gone into faith, and it's gone into believers that our human will is a delusion, and that God is sovereign in everything, and that man's free will is not really free will. And I find that to be a crazy mindset to take on. So at any rate, we're going to dive in more to looking at what does responsibility look like and what does victimhood look like. And so the first one is I could choose my response. Now, this is one of the most powerful truths and realities that we can have. If we have the ability to choose our response, that means we're not victim to our impulses anymore. You see, the animal kingdom is governed by impulse, and that is that if they feel an impulse to attack or to do certain things, everything's governed by an impulse. And to say that there is no moral checker, there's no conscience, there's no thing to stop the action or behavior, it's just impulsive. And so when we say that we have the ability to respond, we are saying that we are far superior and above the animal kingdom, and that we have the ability to check and to curb our impulses. Now, this is a really important mindset. Now, if we adopt a victimhood mindset, then we go into the mindset that we are purely animalistic. And that is that whatever we want, think, or feel, we do, and that we respond to our impulses, and we really don't have responsibility. And that is the ability to respond. Now, I find this to be really, really important inside of my life, because once I believe I have the ability to respond, then now I am personally responsible to make the right choice. And that is that I might feel an impulse to do a certain behavior, but then I can ask myself, is this going to be beneficial to me, or is this going to be detrimental to me? And then I could choose by wisdom which road I want to take. And that is what responsibility is all about. Now, it amazes me that people avoid responsibility by saying, you know what, I really didn't have the ability to choose my response. And the reality is that, you know, there can be things that happen to us, but even in the things that happen to us, we still have the ability to choose our response. And that is this: if all freedom is taken away from me, and if I'm put in prison, and I'm stripped of my liberties, there is still going to be a realm in my life that I have influence and authority over, and that is my weather up here, my mindset. Now, we can't control the weather out there, but we can control the weather in here, and that is we can control how we respond to certain situations and certain scenarios. Now, victimhood says we don't have the ability to respond, and that's a sad case. Another word for responsibility or mindset is our response to his ability, our response to God's ability. Now, this is everything in the gospel, everything in relationship with God is our response to his ability. Now, he has the ability to do all things, right? He is all powerful. He has the ability to do great things. But it's our response to his ability that actually finishes the equation that finishes this thing out. Now, what we do have is a Christianity full of victimhood that is all about God's ability, right? And magnify God and how great he is and all his ability and all of these things. And he's sovereign and he can do what he wants, when he wants, and all of this different mindset and beliefs. And they put everything upon God, not understanding that it is our response to his ability that actually makes the connection. The way I like to explain this is that God's power is much like a frequency, much like radio waves, right? And it is ever broadcasting. Like if I were to be have some special goggles to see radio waves, I would see them all around me, right? And then it's constantly distributing. It has distributed. Now I'm not picking up on these waves because I'm not connected. My receiver is not dialed in, and I'm not picking up what's been dropping down. And so that's the way it is with God. And when we think about his ability, it is ever distributing. It is in constant activity. God's Spirit is in constant activity. Now it's up to me whether I respond to his ability, dial in my receiver, get connected, get on the same wavelength, get in alignment for me to receive the communication. But it's up to me, my response to his ability. And I find that to be really, really important. Now, victimhood and codependent thinking puts everything on God. And that it's all about him and it's all his responsibility. And I'm just sitting here waiting for some sovereign move of God, some sovereign manifestation in my life. And maybe one of these days he'll come through. And the reality is that those people are going to be waiting for a long time. And that if you want God to move, you are under the delusion that he is not moving already, right? And that we're praying for his move and his manifestation, and he's asking us to move. And we're looking for a revival and a future date to be refreshed and to experience renewal, not understanding that that is right now, today. All we have is today. Today is the day of salvation. Today is the day of connection. Today is the day of renewal for us personally. Now, whenever we push this out into a future date, we are getting in the mindset of victimhood. And we're waiting on God to do sovereignly something. And we are going to be waiting for a long time. So, am I controlling and influencing the controllable? Now, we've talked about in the other lessons about acceptance and thoroughly accepting your authority, thoroughly accepting your responsibility. And with that mindset comes, you know what? I'm going to control the controllable inside my life. And I am going to begin to step up, rise up, and influence the areas of my life that can be influenced for good. And this is why we thoroughly established the frame. And that is the 4 areas of your life: family, faith, fitness, and finance. And saying, how am I going to make deposits inside of these areas? Because that is really controlling and influencing the controllable. And we have to rise up in our authority and do that. Now, what takes place is, under this victimhood mentality, is that everything's on God. Now, I relieve myself of responsibility by pushing everything upon God and not understanding that it is my responsibility to begin to influence. It is my responsibility to begin to control the things that I can control. And stepping up and do that is what responsibility is all about. The next one, the sign of responsibility, is growing inside of self-control. The fruit of the Spirit is self-control, and God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a self-control. And there's so many things where temperance is promoted inside of the Bible. But we come to the conclusion under victimhood that we don't have the ability to control ourselves, right? And we stay stuck in that state because of our mindset and our belief systems. Now, if we understand thoroughly that the Spirit of God is operating in our life and that self-control is growing and developing inside of our life, then we will receive the benefits and the manifestation of that self-control. But if we believe that we don't have self-control, in fact, we are in the mindset that we need to relinquish and surrender control, as is taught in most churches today, that we need to relinquish control. Now, here's the reality. We must relinquish control of the things that we cannot control. And that is releasing those things, because we do not have power to influence them. We do not have power to change them whatsoever. And so within that realm is surrender. And that is, I'm going to relinquish control under the things that I cannot possibly control. But beyond that, to relinquish control over the things you can influence is never encouraged. To relinquish control is never going to get you any results. What that is saying is called passing the buck. And that is, let's pretend this is the buck. This is Tim's responsibility, right? And that I could take this buck and I could run with this buck and I could do my part. And I could take responsibility for my life, and I could begin to control the things I can. We take this buck and we go, there you go, God. That's your buck. And he's looking at us like, strange. Like, this is not the way that it works. I put you in responsibility. This is your buck. The buck stops with you. Now you're going to take that and you're going to run with that. You're going to have faith in me. You're going to seek my empowerment. Am I going to be able to work through you to do some awesome things? But still, the buck is with you. And so responsibility is taking the buck, and victimhood is passing the buck. And we have to decide what we're going to do inside of our lives. Are we going to develop self-control, or are we going to accept the mindset that we are out of control and that we don't have the ability to control ourselves, and that we're going to relinquish everything that we can control and influence into God's hands and just sit and wait? You see what I'm talking about here? It's nuts. So I'm either co-creating or I'm co-destroying. Co-creating is on the side of responsibility. Co-destroying is on the side of victimhood. Now the reality is that we were created and made in the image of God. And that he said, let us make man in our image and let them have dominion. And what that means is that I'm a creator. You're a creator. Every human is a creator. Now, I'm not saying the creator, but I'm saying you are a creator. And that is because you have been made in his image and in his likeness. You have a sovereign will, and you have the ability to create. Scientists have proven that we are in a co-creation process with the world. That we're not observing the world. We're actually within it in a co-creation process. And I find that to be simply amazing. Because if I begin to take responsibility as a creator, then I'm going to begin to create. But if I don't take that responsibility as a creator, then what do? I destroy. Because there are two powers, right? There is Christ who's come to give us life and life more abundantly. And we can align ourselves with life and begin in this co-creation process and begin to create life. Now this video is a manifestation of my creation, of me co-creating with God and creating life in other people. Creating life. But if I fail to take responsibility to create life and to create awesome things, I don't rise up to my identity as a creator, what do? I begin to tear down. First, myself. With all these self-accusations and this mindset, I begin to, piece by piece, begin to disassemble myself as a creator and tear myself apart. And then what I begin to do, I begin to look at the world around me, and I begin to look at other people, and I begin to do the same thing. Because the reality is, if I can't love myself, then there's no way for me to love other people. So if I begin to make deposits in myself and begin to build myself up, begin to create the man that I want to be, I can actually do that in other people's lives. I can become a creator and a builder in other people's lives. But if I hate myself and I'm disassembling myself and destroying myself, then that is the mindset that I'm going to bring to the world. And I don't become a creator, I become a destroyer. You see the two, responsibility and victimhood. The next one is, I'm either going to be proclaiming or I'm going to be complaining. Now, responsibility is proclaiming. And that is, I look at all the awesome things that God says about my identity, all the awesome things that He says about my reality in Him, and everything that He is to me, and I begin to proclaim that inside of my life. I begin to communicate the truth. I communicate the truth first to myself, and then I communicate the truth, and it comes through me and out of me. And that is a proclamation. Now, if you're not into the proclamation, you're not into taking responsibility, the only thing left is the complaining. And what is the complaining? Complaining is a full set of victimhood. And that is that instead of feeling like you can influence the world, you feel like you can't. In fact, everything is happening to you, and that's why you're complaining. And you complain about this, that, and the other thing because all of these things are happening to you, and you are definitely buying into you're the victim in the story. And we have to drop that mindset and get into the mindset of proclaiming. This leads to this mindset. I am either out to get the world or the world's out to get me. And one is the realm of responsibility, that I have understood my role. I understand my mission. I understand what I'm supposed to do. I'm putting on my equipment, and I am going forth, and I'm out to get the world. The world's my oyster. I'm out to fulfill the mission. Now, if we don't have that mindset, then the other mindset takes over. And that is, the world is out to get me. And you could tell exactly the mindset you're in by the story and the narrative that is coming out of your mouth. And if it's one of victimhood, you're constantly complaining how the world is screwing you over, how that person did this, that, and the other thing, and I can't believe my boss did this, and I can't believe my mom did that, and all of a sudden, you are just surrounded in victimhood. And the world is kicking your ass. See, you're either out there in the fight, battle-born, kicking ass, taking names, or it's happening to you. And so you got to decide whether you're going to be a victor or you're going to be a victim. And the reality is that we are going to face struggles and fights. Everybody, without exception, is going to face a struggle and is going to face a fight. Now, whether you see yourself as the victim or the victor in the situation is going to be whether you are triumphant victoriously over those challenges in your life, or if those challenges are beating you up. It's true. So, the world is out to get me, or I'm out to get the world. This leads us to being powerful or powerlessness. With God, the creator of the universes, we can't even fathom how big and how awesome He is and what His power really is. And the full manifestation of the power, we can't even wrap our minds around this. But He has decided to make His home on the inside of us. That we are the temple of the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God lives inside of us. And the mindset of powerlessness should probably be at the beginning of your relationship with God, where you begin to recognize that maybe you can't do certain things. Now, especially when it comes to your salvation, we should drop down in powerlessness and say, I don't have the ability to do what it takes. And then that leads us to the place of humble dependence and relying on His power. So the powerless man becomes the powerful man. But what we have done is we still identify with the man of powerlessness. And we still identify with all that weakness, not understanding the resources and the power that we have. So we stay stuck in victimhood. We stay stuck with the man who has no power and who's weak and is constantly falling and constantly relapsing, and we accept the identity of victimhood when God is calling us out to be the victor. So problems get beaten or problems beat you. Now the mindset of victor says, you know what? I have these challenges, but these challenges aren't going to stop me. I'm up against these obstacles, but I'm going to scale this wall. I could run through a troop and leap over a wall. You get what I'm saying? Is that we look at these challenges and they're either way too big for us and they defeat us and they push us down, or we look at these problems and say, you know what? I am more than an overcomer. And I am thankful to God that He always causes me to triumph. And we look at the obstacles and say, you know what? I'm going to beat this problem. This problem is not going to beat me. You see the different mindset. I'm going to beat this problem. This problem is not going to beat me. And this leads us to, am I going to be a person who stays dependent? And am I going to be dependent upon the system? Am I going to stay dependent on the government? Am I going to stay in that state and condition? Am I going to stay in codependency? Or am I going to rise to the realm of being interdependent? You see, dependent is, there's no giving, right? A dependent person is only a taker. They're taking, there's no contribution back. And we enter into that relationship with God sometimes, is that we're there as this needy little child who needs to be saved and rescued all the time, and He needs to clean us up and wipe the poo-poo off and all of these different things. And the problem is that we stay in that state and condition. Now, it's okay to come to God and be an infant. I was. Okay? I was constantly messing myself. I was constantly messing things up. I need to be cleaned all the time. I need to be rescued. But after 10, 15 years, if I'm still in that state and condition, then I am in a prolonged state of infancy. And that I'm not changing. Things are not growing. So I'm stuck in this state of dependence where I'm not giving back. In the 12-step program, we know you go through the steps, and what do? You take what you have and you give it to others, right? You come out of the state of infancy into adulthood, and you begin to be a supplier of others, and you begin to get into this interdependent relationship, right? Now, the same is true for our lives. Now, we could stay in dependent mode and codependent mode, or we can rise up and begin to be a supplier. Now, inside of responsibility is getting out of consumerism. What you're viewing here is that I'm not consuming, I'm being a provider. I'm being a content provider. And that is, I stepped out of needing to be a consumer of stuff, and then I've stepped up to be a provider. Now, this is what responsibility is all about. Is that I'm growing, I'm coming out of dependence, I'm coming out of codependency, and I'm stepping into the realm of interdependence, where now I have the ability to give back. That is a powerful realm of responsibility. I can change any habit that's not benefiting me. That is a sign of responsibility. If we look at the areas of our life and we understand that it's in our realm and is in our control and in our influence, then I can change any habit that I have that is not benefiting me. I can make a choice. I can rely upon the power of God to accomplish that inside of me. Now, the only thing that needs to do is to take responsibility and to make that choice. But victimhood is I can't change. I cannot change. I am stuck. I am in a stronghold, right? I'm in bondage. I'm in this, that, and the other thing. And the reality is that we're not taking responsibility and understanding that we're free already. We are free. You are free right now as you're ever going to be. Now, whether you're using that freedom and exercising your choice for things that are benefiting you and others, it's totally up to you. But you are free. Next one is that I refuse to give up my personal power. If you are standing as a victor, if you are taking responsibility, you're saying, you know what? I am not giving away my personal power to anybody, right? I am not being controlled by anybody. I'm not going to be manipulated. I'm not going to be the people pleaser. That I'm taking the power and the authority that God has given me, and I am walking this out. Now, victimhood is far different. They're giving away their power all the time, stuck in codependency and people-pleasing mode, and that they live for the approval and the pleasing of the people and everyone around them. Next one. We got a couple more. We'll go through them super quick. If I don't like where I'm going, I can change my direction. There's many times in life where you're going to find yourself on a path that leads to nowhere. That is not going in the direction that you want. Your families could be not going in the direction you want, and you need course correction. Your financial life could be going in a direction you don't want to go, and it needs course correction. Now, the reality is of responsibility that I can look and that I can see that. And if I see something that is not going on the path that I would like, I can course correct and I can change directions. Now, victimhood is far different. I see the pain inside of my life, and I feel powerlessness. And I don't feel like that I have the ability to influence or to change that. And so what do? I give up. I don't take responsibility. And I seal myself inside of victimhood. And I go upon the detrimental course and the road that leads to nowhere. And that is the ultimate of victimhood. I got 3 more. I'm going to do them really, really quick. I'm tough, and I can get the answers to my problems. And constructive criticism helps me learn. And I can learn from my failures. I'll just wrap these up in a nice big bow. That if I am a victor, I understand that I'm going to face problems. But I do understand that I have the ability and access to the resources that are going to help me solve those problems. And I am open to feedback from other people. I consider it as a learning process, and my ego doesn't get offended, and I don't get this, that, and the other thing. And that when I do fail, I stand back up and I learn from my mistakes and I walk forward. Now, victimhood is far different. Victimhood says, you know what, I'm weak and I can't get the answer to my problems. And that constructive criticism is attack against me and my ego, and I get defensive and I get offended. And lastly, when I fall, I cry and I moan. And I never learn from my mistakes, and I fall again. And I repeatedly fall for the same problems over and over and over again, and I don't learn nothing. And that is victimhood. So, this is glaring. Am I going to be a victim, or am I going to settle myself inside of victimhood? Am I going to take responsibility for my life, or am I going to pass the buck? The choice is ours. All right, brothers. I'll see you on the next one.